AI is no longer an experiment. It has become a structural growth engine. The question for leadership teams is no longer whether AI will be integrated into their organization, but how quickly and how effectively it will be deployed. Strategic deployment requires a clear vision, stronger governance, a structured roadmap, integration into core business processes and functions, and deployment in a secure and compliant environment. When implemented strategically and implemented right, AI delivers measurable impact, top-line growth, bottom-line improvement, stronger enterprise value. Once the strategy is defined and rollout structured in the right way, the key operational question becomes, how do organizations actually embed AI into their business processes and daily operations? To discuss that, we invited Yasser today.
Thank you, Medea, and a very good question, of course. This question about how to integrate AI into your business processes is a very important one, because by integrating it and making it part of your day-to-day job, that's how you're really gonna feel the ROI. And to make it very clear for us always, step zero is to really understand the business case per department. So before we start buying tools, before we start buying software and implementing complex projects, it's very important to get a good feel of the business case per department, because that's eventually what's going to make the difference in your AI implementation. And the way that we do that is by a very simple way of a quick scan. We sit down with your actual team in a session of 3 hours. We sit down with them, we talk with them, we figure out what frustrations, pain points they experience in their day-to-day process. We map that, and based on that, you can make a very clear, prioritized roadmap for where to implement AI. So that would be really my advice as well, to start process first and not technology first. And from that on, you can make a very clear implementation roadmap.
Amazing. We fully support that, and it's absolutely essential to go into the process and identify where efficiencies are possible and upgrades of the process are possible. Good. Second question for you, Yasser. Based on your experience, Yasser, where should organizations start when embedding AI into their processes? Where are you finding the most immediate opportunities during rollout?
Yes, so as I said earlier, after you've done such a quick scan, and you've brought up the use case for AI per department, that it's very clear where you can implement it. We like to start implementing by a framework called the three-stage rocket, where in the first stage we see what is possible with existing tools, existing AI tools. We don't have to reinvent the wheel constantly. And parallel to that, we look at, okay, which of the identified use cases can be created inside of an AI assistant. And this is, we call the low-hanging fruit, because this requires the least amount of effort and makes the biggest impact on the short term. And that's the first part. And then in the second stage of the rocket, we look at what can be automated in terms of workflow automations. We do this by using automation tools like N8N or Copilot Studio or Zapier or Make. You have a lot of these. And the nice thing about this second stage is that it really builds on top of your first stage. So the tools that you've implemented, the assistants that you've built in the first stage, these can then be autonomously automated in the second part. And we notice by implementing these first two steps, you can already streamline up to 80, sometimes even 90% time saved. We actually measure this as well. And then only if the business case justifies it, we go to the third stage, which is really a custom AI solution. So that can be machine learning, model training, maybe even custom IT development. Really, the sky is the limit here, and this is more your traditional solution way.
Okay, great. So during implementation, how can organizations ensure that AI embedded in their processes actually delivers real operational impact in terms of productivity, efficiency, and cost reduction? Because a lot of organizations implement AI and start piloting everywhere, and they're not measuring ROI. So could you elaborate on that, Yasser?
I definitely can, and this is a very common theme that I see across organizations where there are fragmented pilots everywhere. Everybody's doing something with AI, but there's no real clear measured ROI. And I think this ties nicely into the research that was done by MIT that 95% of AI pilots fail, not because of the technology, but because of the human adoption element. And the 5% of the pilots that do make the finish line are the ones that are really taking the human factor into consideration. So very consciously inside of our methodology, the way that we implement AI, we do that on two pillars. You've heard me talk a lot about the process pillar, and I think that really speaks for itself. Identifying processes, implementing the right tool inside of your current business process. But at the same time, while implementing the process pillar, we also really look at the human pillar. So at the same time, we try to upskill people, we give them workshops, and we do this parallel to the actual process optimization. So that's how you make sure that your AI pilot doesn't end up in the 95% that fails. And to make it very concrete on how you measure the ROI, when we implement such tooling or automations or anything similar to that, we always do a zero count. So we look at, okay, how much time is this process taking you down? How much time? We bring that, we ask that from the employees. Sometimes it's, let's say for a simple workflow, it's 4 hours. Let's say you're a marketing team and you're making blogs, it's 4 hours. And sometimes it can be less. And then we always measure the time it takes after the implementation. And in this specific example, that 4 hours can turn into 15 minutes. And that's how we very concretely per process that we streamline, we measure the time saved. And to make this very clear, there was a marketing team that we did an AI implementation with. They had 3 vacancies inside of their department. And after our 3-month implementations, those 3 vacancies were closed, saving the company 180,000 euros a year. So except from time saved, there's also a lot of cost saved.
Okay, amazing. So from implementation perspective, could you briefly walk us through what a typical AI implementation tech stack looks like that would achieve the business case? Because there are many possible software. Software is coming out daily that's new and looking great and amazing and has big functionality. But the question is, if we just reduce the whole complexity and we look into a core tech stack that would help implementations within businesses and would drive ROI, what would we think about?
Yeah, so a very good question. And, this is also a phenomenon that we call the tool jungle. Right, you're on LinkedIn, you're scrolling, and every day you're seeing the 10 newest AI tools and download these prompt packs. And Claude came out with a new update. And the sentiment that we notice within organizations, within professionals, is that there's a huge sense of overwhelmingness in terms of this AI market. That a lot of businesses just don't know where to start. And I think a lot of this comes from this mindset of thinking technology first. People like to reason from the tech to the business, while you need to flip that around. You need to reason from your business to the tech. And to make this very concrete, I think there's around 3 tools that we almost always implement and that you can actually start implementing right after watching this. One of them being a note taker. That's a note taker like Fireflies. You have Otter AI, Copilot. Microsoft also has one built into their Teams. And basically what this note taker does is it joins your meeting automatically, it listens, it transcribes, and then you can use that transcription for any follow-up you have after that meeting, for a proposal that you want to make, for a strategic idea. This is really the creativity is up to you. So that would be the first one that I would say start getting a subscription on now as Fireflies in our case. The second thing is custom AI agents, and what I mean by that is in your own Copilot or Claude or any preferred AI that you like to use, tenant, you can create something called a custom AI agent. And it sounds very complex, but it's very simple. Basically what it is it's a specific model that you train on a specific process. So you heard me talk about a blog writing assistant. You can have a tone master that helps you write a LinkedIn post, but you can also have a tender writing assistant that helps you write tenders. So also here the use case is very reliant on what your creativity and your business process actually entails. So that's the second part, and this can be done again very pretty basically. And then the third is AI workflow automation. And this is actually using automation tools like N8N, Copilot, Copilot Studio, and this is really where you autonomously start streamlining a process end to end. This can also be very helpful. And maybe to give one last thing with this is that you don't need 30 tools that you use everywhere very chaotically. In our experience, there's just 4 to 5 tools that you need to define in your tool stack, and you need to use these tools rigorously, and that's really that can really drive the most ROI. And to maybe give a closing remark, so within this idea, we had a client that within this tender use case that was writing tenders, they had taken a software package, an AI writer, a tender management system. They were paying 30,000 euros a year for it. And then we came in, we did our implementation, and we discovered that we can implement the same process within existing AI agents and using Fireflies as a note taker. So like only implementing 2 tools to achieve the same result even better. And this was costing them only 30 euros a month in subscriptions. And this is what I mean by changing the perspective. So don't think technology first, but really process first.
Yes, and also from my understanding of your response, Yasser, it's revisiting your existing processes and automation with a new light, and that's AI, and seeing where you can drive efficiencies by deploying ready-to-use tools that can drive tremendous impact.
So, of course, implementing the right tools is really important and can make a huge impact. But another aspect that should not be underestimated is the awareness that you want to create within your team. And we call this AI literacy or AI self-reliancy, which means that if you create a workforce within your organization that can create these assistants themselves, that knows how to spot the right tools for the right process.
Sounds amazing. Good. So the next question, Yasser, for you. What does a secure and compliant IT architecture for AI look like when organizations integrate AI into their operations?
Yeah, that's a good question as well, and a very relevant question with everything that's happening around the world, especially within Europe's sovereignty and data sovereignty, and having control over your data is becoming more and more important. And from this notion, we launched the Secure AI Suite. And what that concretely means is that your whole AI infrastructure, so actually all the things that I've mentioned up until this point, can be hosted within a secure vault, a secure data vault, which includes 3 main components. On the one hand, you have Open Web UI, which is your ChatGPT interface. It's an open source software that can be hosted within this data vault. Within this open source environment, you can host a locally hosted model. As you know, there are open source models released frequently by the big players, but as well internationally. Anyone can just download an open source model and host it within this vault. And that's the first line of contact that's within this Open Web UI interface. But at the same time, you also want to have the flexibility that if, let's say, Google releases a new AI model, that's the newest frontier, you don't want to be compromised and not be able to use that model. So from within that line of thought, we also have a component within this vault called the smart router. This is actually the component that hides behind the Open Web UI. Which what it basically means, it's like a traffic controller for all input that you ask your Open Web UI interface. So you ask it a question, it goes to the smart router first. The router decides if it's sensitive data. If it's sensitive data, it routes it to the local hosted model. So your data just stays inside of your vault, 100% safe. But if it's not sensitive data and it's just a general question, or you can it can go outside the vault, it will route to the right model for this specific task. And this is the way that you also don't compromise on newest models that are getting released. So that's a very important part inside of the vault, which is this Open Web UI interface with the router. And at the same time, N8N can also be hosted within the vault. N8N is also open source, and it can be hosted fully within this vault. This is basically your whole AI infrastructure stack. You can make your automations, you can make all your assistants, you can have a safe environment for your employees to use. And this is very important, right? Because what we see, it's like a trend that we see inside of companies, is that there's an AI policy being created, and there's a big no from the IT department to the rest of the company for using anything related to AI, because there's a lot of fear, of course. And what happens that your employees are still going to use AI if you don't provide them an alternative. They're still going to use AI maybe outside of your point of view on their personal laptops. And this is not made up. This is something that we actually see within our implementations. And this can be this is exactly what you don't want. So if you make a policy around AI, it's very important to also keep in mind to provide a safe alternative. And in our case, that's the Secure AI Suite.
Okay, clear. Thank you very much. So I have a closing question for you, Jesse. During implementation, what are the most common mistakes organizations should avoid when embedding AI into their processes?
Yes, very good question. That because one of the biggest mistakes that I see, there are three to be exact. The first one being is that companies tackle this AI implementation transformation as a traditional IT project. What I mean by that is that, of course, there are a lot of existing IT tools and implementations that have been done for over 10, 20 years. So it's very defined within which borders such an implementation happens. And the challenge with AI is that this is a field that literally changes every day. What we implement today may not be relevant in 2 weeks. And it's very important to have a different leadership mindset around your AI strategy. Of course, you need to have borders, you need to have policy, you need to have a clear vision of what the future entails for your company with AI. But at the same time, it's very important to still keep this agile, flexible mindset, so that if a change comes, that you can still pivot on that change and you're not completely vendor locked in one specific package. So that's the first mistake that I see. The second mistake is that there's bad communication to the teams. So what I mean by that is that inside of your boardroom, there's a bunch of discussion about AI and policy being made without actually seeing, like, hey, what's happening what's happening with my workforce? What are my employees actually feeling about this? Are people afraid about what's coming? And it's very important in our experience that, of course, you have your top-down leadership strategy. That's very important because that's the vision of your company. But at the same time, also have a bottom-up approach where you sit down with your employees, you create awareness. You don't only give them the fish, you also teach them how to fish. And we noticed that by combining these two work streams, that's really how you put AI into practice. Because on the flip side, if you don't do that, what will happen, and again, we've seen this, real world examples, what will happen is that your employees will resist the change, and there will be sabotage in some cases, and you will feel more and more disconnected with your workforce, and that's exactly what you don't want during AI implementation. It's a very sensitive subject. So that's the second mistake. And then the third mistake, and this is more of an argument, is that there's a huge labor shortage right now, in the Netherlands at least, and in the future, where you have 7 working people per retired person as of right now. It's projected that by 2040, this will be 2 working people per retiree, which basically means we're going to have to do the same work with 3.5 times less people. To say this bluntly, the way that you should approach your AI implementation is not as a replacement of your workforce, but really as an empowerment. You know, the people that you have in your organization right now, you're going to need them more than ever in the future. So it's very important to keep that in mind during implementation as well.
Okay. We arrived at the last question. Yes, sir. So let's jam on a number of things that are not prepared. Okay? And we will see what will come out of that.
Sure.
Okay, so trying to recap. No AI implementation without process orientation, right?
Yeah.
The tech stack is simple. You don't need all the tools of the world. You need just a number of tools that you will start implementing radically within the organization. The implementation is not forever because AI advancements are progressing very fast. No lock-in with suppliers. You need to be able to step out, exchange something for something better, right? If you implement AI, you do it with a good security so that you ensure that your data stays sovereign and doesn't get out, and also your client data doesn't leak, and that you get all security issues, GDPR issues, etc. Yeah, and the last bit is that when you want to implement AI, it's essential to ensure that your employees understand why we are doing it as a society, because there is a shortage of employees, and that you make them also able, or you prepare them to adopt AI the right way so that they can help you advance the business. Anything else, yes, sir, that we didn't address in this summary?
Yeah, I think you summarized it very well. I think there's one more point. Well, actually, 2 more points that I would like to raise.
Okay.
One of them being that, of course, we have this labor shortage that's coming up. You know, the 1 in 7 is going to become the one for every 2 working people for every retired person. But parallel to that, what's happening, and this is real life, is that 1 in 4 people working inside of the Netherlands are in a burnout. And this is real, and this is happening, and we notice this as well. Every time we do an implementation and we enter a specific department, there's always a lot of pressure, and everybody's feeling stressed, and there's always more work than there is people to do the actual work, and this logically contributes to this number of 1 in 4 people having a burnout. And the way that we see AI implementation is really that by implementing AI strategically inside of your organization, you can get like a new breath of fresh air inside of these departments and make sure that the people when it's Friday and it's 5 o'clock, they can just close their laptop and go have their weekends, you know. And I think that's really the mindset that you need to instill inside of your organization. Like, hey, this is not going to replace you. This is going to help you. It's going to empower you, and it's going to make sure that you're going to have more fun in your work. So that's one point. And at the same time, we really try to close something called the digital gap. So what we see right now is there are a lot of people that are very digital savvy. You know, they're very good with computers and know how to use it and are very quick with it. And at the same time, there's a group of people that is not there at all. And the productivity gap between these groups is increasing and increasing. And this is a very common thing, of course. This has been going on for decades now. But what we see happening now is that exactly the same concept is happening within AI. That there's a group of people that's very AI literate, that is using these tools very rigorously, and that is getting bizarre productivity gains. And there's a group of people that's kind of on the fence, still a naysayer, still not convinced, that saying the output is not reliable. And while some points are fair, what we're seeing in real time is that this gap between these two groups is becoming exponentially bigger. And the point being is that you really need to start thinking strategically about how you're going to implement AI inside of your organization. This is not a conversation that you need to have tomorrow. This is a conversation that you need to have yesterday. And to make it very clear, if you're a consultant and you're charging by the hour, what will happen to your business model if all of your consultants become 20 times more productive? Are you still going to be able to charge by the hour? Or are you going to have to figure out a different business model?
Just another question. What is it that employees need really to learn from AI perspectives to become AI literate?
What they need to learn is that this whole AI transition, revolution, however you want to call it, really requires you to have a different mindset and really a different approach to the way that this transformation is going to happen inside of our organization and, of course, eventually in our society. We call AI a system level technology. So what we mean by that is that we really believe that the technology of AI is going to be like the technology of light, in which where Newton invented the light bulb, and eventually light and electricity started to become embedded in every single part of our lives, under every stone, every rock had to be turned, and electricity was embedded into it, and it really became a system level technology. And we really see this approach happening with AI. Not today, maybe not in 5 years, but in 10, 20 years, AI will be so seamlessly embedded inside of all of our day-to-day endeavors. It's already happening. If you're paying attention, more and more products do have AI embedded in them, and chatbots are becoming more relevant. And if you call it, the municipality of Amsterdam, for example, the first 5 minutes you're actually talking to an AI that's qualifying you, that's routing you to the right person, that's making the decision whether or not to forward you to an actual person. So if you're paying attention, this is already happening, and we really believe that this is only going to be happening more and more and more and more. Saying you don't want to work with AI inside of your organization right now, in 10, 20 years will be the same like saying I don't want to work with electricity. You just won't be able to say that.
Yes. Yeah. So the question is, did we address everything, or is there something that you still want to share about AI and AI implementation? Something that strikes you when you start the implementation?
Yeah, maybe one last remark, and this is more on the practical side to really give you something to think about after, is that you don't need to approach AI implementation or whatever this transition is as a big project with big budgets, with big investments, and we're going to have to turn the wheel 180 degrees and go the different way. In our experience, you can start very small with a select group. We call them the AI ambassadors inside of your company, the champions. Start experimenting, doing stuff. My recommendation would also be do stuff, experiment before you start creating any policy, because you first want to know where the limit is. That's very important. There needs to be a room, like a sandbox for experimentation. And what you'll notice is that by implementing simple tools in a very structured way, you can already get huge gains. AI implementation is not a single project; it's really a process. So what we notice, as I said before, you're going to implement something 3 months ago, and today there's a new tool. And then it's always worth considering, hey, is this worth changing everything again or not? But really approach it calmly. Don't be overwhelmed. Download that note taker. Make your first assistant, even if it's for getting your groceries at the supermarket. It doesn't have to be a big crazy use case. You just have to learn by doing, and really become AI literate.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Yasser.
Thank you, Medea.
It was a pleasure having this conversation together with you.
Likewise.